Quinshon Judkins, longtime Browns beat reporter, Tony Grossi, on what the Quinshon Judkins incident, which he was charged with domestic violence, what it says about Andrew Berry.
Let's take each case separately. Delpit has not been a problem at all since, those allegations at LSU. Some of them have gone by the wayside, like Perry on Winfrey. We know the Watson thing. It doesn't speak well to Berry's research into this. Sometimes there's no evidence of any wrongdoing in their history. And I don't know what Judkins' history was. I know in Michael Hall's case, people have told me long after the fact that there were rumblings of problems with him. So that was a risk. Of course, he was a third-round pick or a second-round pick. So, yeah, it doesn't speak well to Berry's research into these guys.
So we'll get into that in a minute about Berry and Hall and Perry on Winfrey. But what's at stake for Quinshon Judkins with the Browns? I know you wrote an article about this. Domestic violence, hasn't signed his contract, wanted more guaranteed money like all the second-round picks. What's on the line for Judkins here?
Well, there's a couple of things there. Let's start with what Tony Grossi sort of brought up. Whether or not Andrew Berry is sort of failed or whatever with the background, or maybe he got it exactly right with Quinshon Judkins and this came out of nowhere. At the end of the day, the bill's going to come due. If he's not on the field and they lose games, he's ultimately going to be held responsible, as is Kevin Stefanski. Specifically with Judkins and this whole thing, obviously the first thing is Judkins was somebody who was taking on the challenge of replacing Nick Chubb with a smile on his face. Very likable, very charismatic. He was leaning into this thing. And let's be clear, the Browns were leaning into this as well. They were more than happy to sort of allow Judkins to sort of be this guy that was going to sort of help them to sort of usher in this new era and help them he was the new puppy to Nick Chubb being the old dog that was sort of being put out. And to now have this thing, it's shoved right back in your face that now you don't have the player that everybody loved in Nick Chubb, that everybody wanted to root for, or that people are still unhappy that they can't root for him. Except now, if the charges prove to be true and the NFL suspends him, now you also don't have the new player. So you end up with neither. From a larger standpoint, you look at the way the Browns drafted. They start with defense up the middle. They get a couple running backs, and ultimately they finish up with some quarterbacks in the tight end. This was a team that's sort of building to running the football, playing good defense, trying to avoid turnovers and those type of elements. And then the guy who is going to be a huge part of the offense is now at stake for potentially games at the beginning of the season. And if you're looking at the schedule and you're sitting there going, the Bengals week 1, and you're going, oh man, their first round pick, that situation's a mess. Trey Hendrickson's a mess. They've got a whole bunch of other guys who missed minicamp. You're sitting there going, okay, I can talk myself into maybe the Browns can go and beat the Bengals. Well, now you lose the guy that was sort of going to help you get there, and now you're already in a position where the rest of that 4-game stretch is incredibly difficult. So if the Browns don't get off to a strong start, and then Quinshon Judkins is coming back, game 5, game 7, whatever it is, there's a real possibility that the season's already sort of on to the next phase of now we're picking up the pieces. So there's that. And then obviously the financial element. We'll see how much hardball the Browns want to play with Quinshon Judkins as agent. If this goes as it could, one, it could extend the negotiation period for how long they want to do this. And there may be arguments over guaranteed money, which could then, even if he's suspended, he'll be there for training camp. He'd be there for the preseason. But then, are you going to dig your heels in on this thing and then miss part of training camp and put yourself even further behind? So it's just a catastrophe on all these various fronts.
And I get the whole second chances thing, Winfrey and Hall, but man, at some point in time, it's got to be enough of this. We're not going to do that because we have to deal with this every training camp now.
Not only that, but one of the sales pitches to this class was the character class. They weren't going to mess around with that stuff with this class. And Quinshon Judkins was a guy who was highlighted as having excellent football character. And, last year's class at least made it to training camp. We didn't even get there. with this group, which was supposed to be this different facing thing. They picked a bunch of players that not a single one of them had a legal entanglement before they got to the NFL. There was no rumblings of off field issues other than like maybe some immaturity on the, but nothing to this degree. So like you were trying to sell us this whole new thing, and then look, we're trying to turn the page from Deshaun Watson and say, hey, there's this whole new thing to be excited about. And then you're sitting there with fans who are sitting there legitimately excited about these rookies. Again, I cannot state this enough. They're, as a group, very photogenic, very likable, very charismatic. They get it on how to, play on camera and do these other things. And they're talented. And there are people who are like, I really like this group. And then we can't even get to training camp before there's reason for them to sort of go, why am I bothering with this?